Hello there, and thanks for listening to the Biomass Magazine podcast. I am your host, Anna Simet. This is episode 2 in our speaker preview series for the International Biomass Conference and Expo, which is being held in Nashville, Tennessee, March 31st through April 2nd. And leading up to the event, we're featuring some of our panelists to give a sneak peek of what they're going to talk about. Today, we have with us Chris Wiberg, Vice President of Timber Products Inspection and Biomass Energy Lab, and he will be speaking at the North American Biocarbon Conference, which we launched as a co-located event with the IBCE this year, just due to the smoking hot interest in this topic. So it's brand new this year. Chris, my friend, welcome, and thanks for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a real pleasure.
We're so happy to have you. I think let's start, Chris, by having you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself and then Timber Products Inspection and Biomass Energy Lab.
Sure. Thank you for having me. This is a real pleasure. So Chris Wiberg with Timber Products Inspection Biomass Energy Lab. We're an inspection agency and laboratory based out of Conyers, Georgia. Our overall company focus is wood-based products. The laboratories, we have multiple disciplines, but I oversee the biomass laboratory where we test solid biofuels and pyrogenic biocarbon, which is becoming more and more popular. So historically, we've probably been better known in the space for solid biofuel testing, but now as biocarbon becomes so popular, it is also very common tested at our site. But yeah, I'm more than happy to talk to you about the overall panel. So
yeah, let's get into it. Side note, it's kind of crazy because we're going to be talking about biocarbon standards and I remember I talked to you about wood pellet standards. I mean, the making of those. I mean, what was that? 2014, 2014?
Oh gosh,
maybe?
yeah, 2007. So
What?
you actually have to go back a long time, yes. So in 2007, we worked on the Pellet Fuel Institute standards, and took us all the way till about 2010, 2011 before they were fully published. But funny that all the work we did back then was a precursor to all the work we're doing now with biocarbon. It's following a very similar path in what we experienced back then. So it actually really helped us to develop standards for the biocarbon industry, just kind of seeing how similar it was and not stepping on the same landmines, as you might say.
Very cool. And I'm sorry, I think I dated us with that, but we're in the now. Okay.
Yes.
So Chris, as we've learned in the past through your presentations at various conferences, including ours, you're there pretty much every year, articles with the media, including our magazines, Pellet Mill Magazine, Biomass Magazine, you've really been deeply involved in the development of these standards for biocarbon materials. So maybe just give us a reminder as to what these standards development initiatives are, and then what's your role within them?
Sure. Yeah, and this is dating ourselves too. I got to go back to about 2007-ish when all of the ISO TC 238 work began. So it's ISO Technical Committee 238. It was created back in 2007 in order to develop standards for solid biofuels. And interestingly, it included the pyrogenic biocarbonish materials because it included thermal treatments of solid biofuels. So the torrefaction, steam explosion, hydrothermal carbonization, charring, these technologies were already incorporated even back in 2007. And so over literally the last 20 years, we've been working on the development of all of the different test methods. And, it's test methods, it's specifications and classes, it's sampling and sample preparation procedures, even safety. And over all of these years, the world, so ISO is an international initiative, and we all work together to this common goal of trying to develop standards for the industry. And my role specifically, so I'm actually the chairman of the U.S. Technical Advisory Group to ISO TC 238. And what that means is the United States has to have its team of experts that weigh in, but we only get one vote, same with every other country. So we have to kind of collect our thoughts and purvey that information on the international scene. And so I'm the leader of that initiative. So a technical advisory group chair. But then I also sit on all the working groups. So think of it as once we pool all that information, it's like you got to send all that information to the drafting committee where they whip it into a document and wrangle over all the little language things. I sit on all those working groups, right? So so not only am I coordinating the U.S. information, but also working on writing the documents. Because of all of that work, and we just know how long it takes for ISO standards to come through. The U.S. Biochar Initiative recently said, hey, we want to kind of get to the goal line a little faster. How can we speed things up a bit for our North American market? And so we initiated a process for developing an American national standard for biochar where we could move faster than the ISO committee can, vet the standards, confirm if they're appropriate or not, and then publish a document saying, if you're going to test moisture, for example, here's the method you would use. And so that process happened from about 2024, June-ish, all the way through about November of 2025, and is now formally published as S668 under ANSI, ASABE, and USBI. So the American National Standards Institute, American Society of Agricultural and Biological Engineers, and the U.S. Biochar Initiative. So it's co-branded by all these different organizations. I was the project leader of that initiative. So yes, I am deeply involved in all of those things.
You are a very busy guy. Well, Chris, at the IBCE in 2025, which was in Atlanta, you gave a presentation and it was titled New Developments in Biochar Standards. And you thoroughly discussed the ongoing process of the creation of the American National Standard for Biochar, as well as the intent of ISO TC 238 to create standards for biocarbon. At this year's IBCE, your presentation is titled Biocarbon Standards Update. So does this mean that your presentation this year will be a continuation of last year's presentation, kind of like a part two?
Yeah, so that's exactly right. You know, going back 1 year, we were just getting started on all of the pyrogenic biocarbon standards. And it was more about getting people to understand that this work's even being done. And so, you know, just getting people kind of sitting up in their chairs, understanding that this work is progressing, it's taking shape, but now it's underway, you know, and so it's like, well, now that it's underway, what exactly is happening? What do we need to weigh in on? And how does this information actually get conveyed? And a great example of this is right now, we're working on the terminology standard where we're actually defining what biochar is. And you'd say, well, I thought we already knew that, right? You know?
Right.
And the answer is, well, in our inner circles here within the United States, U.S. Biochar Initiative, for example, would say, well, that is biocarbon used for some kind of an environmental purpose and or sequestration, but you are not going to consume it. It's never going to be burned. It's going to be buried or, you know, encased in something maybe like concrete. Well, that's not necessarily understood around the world. Around the world, people might say biochar is used in steel manufacturing or used to replace coal. And so we are all using these terms interchangeably between industries, and there is not yet consistency. So that's kind of what I'm trying to purvey on this year's message. It's the micro. Last year it was macro, it was high level saying, okay, here's exactly where what's coming down the pipe. Now these initiatives are live, and it's our opportunity to kind of dig in on details and understand the significance, right? Because, you know, our whole biochar industry really needs the biochar definition to land squarely on sequestration, environmental benefit, you do not consume it. But that's not necessarily going to be the push for other countries. So that's kind of an example. And of course, I'll get much deeper in the presentation and we'll talk it through all kinds of different points as to what's going on. And I will say this allows me to provide a shameless recruiting opportunity to for people to join our team, right? So we're always looking to recruit people to join our U.S. team of experts. You know, so that's another part of this, get people interested in it to the extent that they would want to engage it. I can't do it all myself, right? I need a team of people that can be engaged in doing all this work.
Well, that's a really good segue, Chris, into the next question, which you kind of already talked about. Your team of U.S. experts. Within your social media posts you regularly make, you refer to U.S. experts as Team USA. This in the spirit of the Olympics, which are currently going on, or what exactly does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's fortuitous that the Olympics are actually ongoing right now, and so everybody seems to associate that concept of Team USA with like the Olympics and the Olympians, et cetera. But I've been using the term for a couple of years now, and the whole concept here is, again, remember ISO is one country, one vote. So the United States has to be aligned in what it provides as far as feedback. So if I'm just sitting at a table by myself and I have to think about what all the different industry interests might want in an outcome for a particular standard, I might be making a lot of guesses and assumptions, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I don't have a great group of people also kind of working together at this common goal of purveying the U.S. Position on things, it's just me, right? And there's a few other experts that are also engaged. But I run a laboratory that fulfills these methods daily, and everybody else is not as vested, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a result, I have a tendency to put in a lot of the inputs, and I just need more inputs. And so, the ring of Team USA, I think it excites people a bit. You don't have to be an Olympian to be fighting for the
Right.
United States. This is this is our opportunity to basically purvey the U.S. interests. And so I kind of take that excerpt of Team USA and I use
Mm-hmm.
it. And it does drive interest, and it allows people to think about it in a kind of it's not a competition as much as it's a working together globally for the better outcome. So
Yeah.
it's how I use it, and I do plan to continue even after the Olympics are over.
I love that for sure. And that
Yeah.
outside perspective is probably really valuable too, more than just your own point of view. Chris, so you want people to get involved. How can people get involved?
Yeah, so that's actually the easiest part. You just call.
Hmm. Okay.
So
Yeah.
I'm on LinkedIn.
You're
Phone
easy to
number,
find.
and yeah, I mean, just Google me and I'll pop
Right.
up. So whether you reach me by social media or through email or phone, whatever, just call and say what your interest is. You
Hmm.
know, if you say, look, I just want to watch, I don't want to be flooded with emails, and I don't have time. That's everybody's in that situation, but you at least want to know what's going on so that you can plug in key moments. All you got in that case, you simply just say, hey, I want to be an observing member, and reach out to me. I'll forward your request to an administrative person at ASABE, and they'll get you set up as an observing member. Separately, you might say, well, I've got it in me to read the documents and actually vote and provide comments. And then that's a voting member. So we can set you up as a voting member. And then the next step is to say, well, do you want to be part of that drafting committee? Do you actually want to be working on the actual definition of biochar? We can set you up with working group 1. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're truly interested in working on terminology, there's a whole working group of people that work on those actual definitions, getting the actual words written down in the definitions. And then the same thing for every single one of the testing methodologies. And you might say, well, okay, I'm an expert in surface area assessment, right? Well,
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be a part of the process where we're going to need all those experts to pool their ideas so that we capture that when we get to the point of talking about that. So there's many different ways to plug in. It could be on specific topics as they come to the table, or it could be in general sense like myself, where I'm just on all the committees. And so as things keep coming through, I keep working on them and keep the U.S.'s interests moving
Mm-hmm.
forward. So I'm kind of a coverall, but what I need is all the micro experts that can weigh in when certain topics come to the forefront. So that's my thought is definitely call. Now, one caveat on getting involved in, if you're part of the United States, then yes, I can take you on to the U.S. Technical Advisory Group. If you're associated with another country, Canada, for example, there's a Canadian committee, right? And so I would just introduce you to the Canadian team. So
Got it.
very common that there's teams all over the place. I had a gal from India recently reach out, and I connected her with the India delegation.
Okay.
So that's very, whichever country you're thinking from, there's probably a way to plug in, and I can help you get to your team.
Perfect. So, Chris, I'm going to put you on the spot. If I could give you like 20 seconds to give us your elevator pitch as to why these biocarbon standards are so important, what would you say?
Well, historically, there's been a real issue in this industry, and it's called just inconsistency in data. People have been using standards from different methodologies across different industries, and as a result, moving biocarbon projects forward is very difficult if you can't trust your data, you don't have confidence in it. What we're trying to do is get all of the test methods to align in such a way that all the labs can follow a common system. And that allows consistency, confidence. How are you going to bank your project if you can't even trust the data you have? It's pivotal to every aspect of these processes. And just look at this market. It's going to explode. It already is. And so how much trouble is it going to be if we do not have consistent standards that everybody abides by and follows? So that's what it's all about. It's essentially taking that step back and getting everybody consistent in how they describe the product, how they test it, how they confirm its quality, so that you can make your project move forward.
Great answer. I think we've given our listeners pretty solid preview of your presentation. Any final words, Chris?
Hey, just you might want to move a few extra chairs into the room this year, I think.
Yeah.
Would love to
I
think that
agree.
it'll be highly attended. I know there's a lot of different topics going on at the same time, but I certainly invite everybody with a deep interest in this topic to be present and be prepared to even roll up your sleeves and get engaged.
Well, thanks, Chris. Thanks so much for joining us and chatting with me about your upcoming presentation.
Thanks for the opportunity. Look forward to seeing it live and at the show.
Me too. And to our listeners, Chris's presentation, Biocarbon Standards Update, will be held Wednesday, April 1st at 1 o'clock under the Biocarbon Standards Markets and Applications panel as part of our North American Biocarbon Conference held jointly with the IBCE. Producers get in free to the International Biomass Conference. Learn more and register at biomassconference.com. And that'll do it for this one. Thanks so much for listening.